All right, let's get into it. Today, we're tracking the career of Satish Nori, and his story is really a fascinating look at how the fight for justice itself is evolving, moving from the traditional courtroom all the way into the world of AI.
And this quote right here from a recent TEDx talk really just sets the whole stage. How a chatbot can stop homelessness. I mean, how does a lawyer who spent 2 decades in housing court get to a point where he's talking about chatbots? Well, that's the exact journey we're about to explore.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down. Think of his career in 4 main stages. First, we've got the foundation, his time on the front lines. Then comes the rise, when he stepped into leadership. After that, the pivot, a huge shift into technology. And finally, the multiplier, which is what he's doing right now to innovate and shape policy.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning with the foundation. For about 2 decades, Satish Nori was deep in the trenches of New York City's housing crisis. This is where he got a real, first-hand education in how the system works and where it breaks down.
It all kicked off with a stellar education, right? He got his bachelor's from Johns Hopkins and then went on to get his law degree from NYU, which really paved the way for the career in public interest law that followed. And he didn't waste any time. Right out of law school, he was at the Legal Aid Society, first in Brooklyn, then Harlem. He was in court representing tenants and tenant groups, fighting eviction cases one by one. Eventually, he was leading the whole housing litigation team at another legal services group. I mean, this was as hands-on as it gets. And you can see this whole era of his life summed up perfectly in the title of his book, Sheltered. It's basically the story of those 20 intense years he spent inside the housing court system. So next up is what we're calling the rise. This is the part of the story where he shifts gears, moving from fighting for one client at a time to leading a whole operation and trying to scale up his impact.
And that big shift happens in 2013. He's named the attorney in charge of the Legal Aid Society's entire Queens office. This was a completely different level of responsibility.
And just to give you a sense of the scale here, all of a sudden he was managing an office with a staff of 100 people.
He was overseeing a $5 million annual budget.
And his office was handling something like 5,000 different client matters every single year. The big takeaway here is that his entire perspective had to change, right? He had to zoom out from the details of a single case to managing an entire system.
And you know, that system-level view is what leads him right into our next phase, the pivot. After mastering the traditional legal world, Nori makes this huge leap, embracing technology as a whole new tool to broaden the reach of justice.
I mean, think about it. The tools he used completely transformed. He went from things like courtroom proceedings and in-person meetings to mobile apps, data science, and even artificial intelligence. He was looking for brand new ways to create change on a massive scale.
So he jumps into these major leadership roles at a couple of really key legal tech nonprofits. He was the executive director at Just Fix, which uses mobile apps to help tenants to document issues and fight back. And now he's at Just Tech, figuring out the entire strategy for using AI to make justice more accessible. And you know, this kind of work, it gets you noticed. In 2022, the American Bar Association called him a legal rebel, which is honestly the perfect title for someone who's shaking up the old ways of doing things.
And that brings us to where he is now, in this final phase we're calling the multiplier effect. This is where he takes everything he's learned from both the courtroom and the world of tech and starts using it to influence the future through policy and education.
And look at where he's teaching. We're talking about some of the best law schools in the country: NYU, Columbia, Cornell Tech, Cardozo. He's making sure all those lessons he learned in the trenches and in tech are getting passed on to the next generation of lawyers.
And it's not just in the classroom. He's also become a really important voice in public policy. He's had these high-level appointments to commissions on everything from the NYC Charter to homelessness. He's literally helping to fix the system from the inside out. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, you see this incredible arc. Satish Nori's career is pretty much a masterclass in how you evolve your strategy for seeking justice, from helping one person at a time to trying to change the entire system for everybody.
And that leaves all of us with a pretty big question to think about. If this is the journey one advocate has taken, from courtrooms to code, what does that tell us about what the next frontier for justice might look like for everyone?